Welcome to Board Ghost, a story broadcast with games as the engine.
If living is a highway, then heaven is a bus stop. Been waiting for a minute there, but has it been forever? 'Cause dying don't
We believe you're out there, hungry for stories for shared experiences. We can't see you, can't hear you, yet we will play for you. This night's offering is a game of skeletons. To learn how we generate stories playing the game of skeletons, go check out our Skeletons Rules Primer. Skeletons is a game from Jason Morningstar, who also designed Fiasco that we've played quite a bit on this show. Our humble players, myself, John Holt, with me.
Ken Breese.
All right, and returning guest.
This is Kelsey Dionne.
Everyone has chosen a skeleton.
Sure have.
Why don't we go, before we get into making our map, let's go around and talk about who our skeletons are. Kelsey, why don't you start? What's your skeleton?
I am Headless, the skeleton, lacking a head. So Headless wields a club, spiked club, and wears a holy symbol, which is sort of a wavy dagger on a chain. Headless, for not having a head, likes to collect other things instead and is wearing an array of things taken from poor souls that didn't make it out of this tomb.
That's awesome.
Some mismatched boots. Because
That's
why wear
so
the same
cool.
boot? When you have
Exactly.
2 feet.
That is so cool. I see on your drawing you have a little pauldron there on the shoulder as well.
Yeah, it looked cool.
Pretty cool.
You know, it fit through the rib cage nicely.
Mhm.
So that's there.
We haven't seen that before where someone's sort of like a character quirk is that they take things from people in the tomb.
Not having a head really got to
Yeah,
Headless,
really
you know?
can't find your head, need to find other things.
Well, the piece de resistance is the rock that is in place of my head because I didn't want to be too, you know.
That's what that is.
It was unsettling to my fellows not to have something head-shaped.
Some
and
sort of
So
head.
you placed a rock.
I found a nice rock at one point while I was
Exactly.
briefly conscious and slammed it home. It stayed.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Ken, what about you? Who are you
I am playing Arrow Shield. Arrow Shield has a round shield. It's quite large, tall as his pelvis from the ground. So it's a pretty big round shield with arrows peppered within it. There's a rent in the shield in one of its sides. It's a pretty straightforward design, sort of a field crossed twice.
Mhm.
There's also a bearded axe that Arrow Shield carries. And I have drawn that axe to look like, I don't know, like a snake tooth? Like a snake with a big
Oh.
Your big old
tooth?
fang.
Yeah, big fang, basically.
Cool.
Cool.
Or a really massive overbite, whichever one
Mhm.
you
Both
want to go
Like
with there.
a well-aged vampire.
Well-aged vampire. Exactly. And that's Arrow Shield. How about you, John?
I'm playing Tattered Cloak. They have a once red, probably now faded, not with sunlight but with time, cloak, and a battle-scarred sword that they carry, chipped, pitted, and worn. Little cloak and hood.
That's-
The next thing we need to do is sort of figure out where we are.
That's right.
Like, what is this tomb? And start drawing our map. So let's chat. What do you guys feel? Where we aren't going to really explain a whole lot about it.
Nope.
I don't think. Like we could if we want to give some mechanics to like where this tomb is.
Yeah.
And when maybe or what this world is.
Yeah.
We can build a little bit of that out, but we don't have to get too deep. It's just sort of structure. It's more to inform the structure and the backstory.
Before we started playing, we were considering playing as robots. So I'm into this idea that where we are is very remote. We could do something in space or something on another planet. We could also do something more fantastical, like a multi-dimensional node or something like that is where we are.
I like the remote thing. I know we were also talking about Dark Sun, so I was like, ooh, something super out there. Desert-like, multi-dimensional though. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Is it like a gateway, like or an antechamber to a series of gateways, like a way station kind of thing,
Ooh.
that like
I
leads
like
to different
that.
portals?
I like that a lot. That makes a lot of sense. So we can sort of combine the two maybe and think more of a desert-based tomb, but that is a gateway to
A hub
Yeah.
for multiple gateways
Yeah.
or something.
yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sigil-like.
So it can be any shape or size. but there's going to be a central sarcophagus with like a north, south, east, and west wall. So I'll just kind of give us at least like, do you guys think like a box, more of a circle? What are you feeling for shape?
Circular.
Something a little more circular.
Cool.
Okay.
And we have to have a sarcophagus, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So
Is it our home, this sarcophagus?
No.
Oh.
No, it's probably what we're protecting.
Oh, good.
yeah,
Like, we don't even know what we're protecting.
Ah.
That's part of this game is like
Right.
almost trying to figure out what the hell is here that we're just compelled to protect.
Dang. So whatever's
We
in
have
this
no
is-
idea what it is. An amazing treasure lies well hidden in the tomb. Where and how? Note the answer on your map. And I like the idea that there is a treasure chamber, perhaps, where there are tons of treasure chests, like tons and tons of them.
Mhm.
And these treasure chests, I'm not sure if maybe they're like decoys or if they do actually have treasure in them. But one of the treasure chests has this fantastical treasure. And that treasure would be voice of like some primordial, something like that.
Ooh.
Yeah, maybe like, I mean, if this is like a way station, this is almost like a lost and found or baggage claim sort
Yeah,
of thing. Like
yeah.
as it's like detritus that
Totally.
people have like come through, but there's
I
treasure.
love it.
There's like treasure in this detritus.
I
So
love
it's not
it.
like
The trash room.
The trash
Yeah.
trash into treasure.
The trash into treasure. I love it. So let's exactly say that. It is the let's even go one step further. Let's just say it is the voice of a god is here in this treasure chest.
The question I have could play into that a little bit, the voice of the god, because
Oh, good.
what scene is depicted in the fresco that covers the eastern wall? I am wearing a holy symbol, which I don't even know if as a skeleton I remember what it was for, but on the eastern wall there's a glorious scene of some mighty maybe priest or some highly regarded person committing a ritual with this holy symbol, which was a wavy dagger.
Mm.
And I think in this ritual there's probably a victim. They're being killed.
Sacrifice.
Right, and this is some godly ritual, so I don't know if it ties into this voice in the box.
I love it. Well,
maybe.
yeah, on the eastern wall, then we'll sort of say
Is
that.
this which way's north?
Yeah, we'll do, right? All right. So my question is, who are interred in the 7 niches along the southern wall? And note your answer on the map. So we'll put they're like ferrymen
Ooh.
or ferry, like
Oh.
they're
Okay.
each one is adorned with jewels that relate to
Mm-hmm.
another like aspect somewhere within this tomb and are tied to like they were the ones who would activate if the portals or whatever and help people
yes.
like shepherd them through this way station
Cool.
depending on the port and be able to open they pass you to the next person who would open that portal for you. But now they're interred behind these bas relief. They're bas relief with like gilt or like painted versions of the jewelry that may be on them beneath this sculpted facade.
Valuable.
We do need a sarcophagus, right? Like a central thing, or no, or it's just a. Do we?
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know if we do.
I lean towards like a glassy onyx sphere that just sort of floats in the center of the room.
I really
Ooh,
like that. Let's
Yeah.
just go with that.
that
Okay.
lends it importance. This is someone or
That
something
way we can
important.
just draw a big black circle.
Yep, I love it.
And it's probably like 6 foot in diameter.
Mm-hmm. Just floating.
Mm-hmm.
Silently. Mhm.
Yeah. Does it rotate?
I was just thinking that. I think it kind of does.
Yep.
All right.
Slowly though.
Mm-hmm. So our tomb is from the surface in this desert waste, far from any other bit of civilization. This massive black glass cube that, when the light hits it, you can see almost clean through.
Yep.
In the sands that shift every once in a while, it will uncover one of the bodies that litters the area around the cube. But if you have a key, whatever that key is, you can step into the cube and you'll find yourself in the foyer, the antechamber of the tomb. Just off the antechamber is a little guard station. This forest of statues and statuary, amongst which is hidden Arrow Shield.
That's me.
And kind of circling around that, you get to this sort of deteriorated, moldered, disrepaired, anti-living area. This little bit where probably the most domestic of this place that is full of just old bits of pottery and dishes and all that stuff. And in there you'll find Tattered Cloak somewhere.
Somewhere amongst the refuse.
So continuing on, you'll actually come closer to the heart, to the sarcophagus, which is like a 6-foot black onyx sphere that rotates slowly in the center of the room. On the southern wall, you'll see the 7 niches or niches. Yeah, wherein there's a bas relief of these 7 custodians with the decorations noting their different garb and the jewelry that they have, the things that they once maybe used to activate the sarcophagus. Branching off of that, you could go down into what is effectively the waste room, where the detritus, the leavings of travelers have been gathered. If you branch the other way, you'll start to hear the sounds of water as you get closer to a temple, to something that is recognizable from the mural on the eastern wall of the sarcophagus room. And in that room, you'll find Headless still wearing their crooked dagger, amulet of their god, of their religion. And further past that chamber, as you get closer to the rush of water, you'll come upon a platform in a cavernous room down a set of stairs, and it smells of cave and mildewy,
Definitely,
wet,
it's very
wet rock. We'll go into a little like quietness, and then we're going to arrive. We're actually going to choose who would like to go first in terms of the unsealed tomb and making the choice.
I'll go first.
Okay, you're going to go first, and then we're getting into it.
Arise, skeletal guardians, and protect the tomb! The spirit of place that has been disturbed by the energy of this tomb, now some time has passed, is actually a water spirit, elemental spirit, comes out of the flowing river underneath the latrine. It's almost sentient wave that sort of is rising up, and almost you could even think of it as like an ooze. It's sort of rising up out of the river underground, and then pushing itself past the bars that are blocking sort of the entryways into the room above. So it's like just, and that's sort of when we wake up. It's when this ooze starts filling up the latrine.
Coming out of a long sleep, I'm aware of this ooze, right? I know it's happening.
Yeah, we can feel its presence invading the tomb.
Yep, just mystically, you are tied to the tomb. You know everything that happens in the tomb.
I'm going to make sure that my rock is sturdy on my head, because this is about to get serious. And I'm going to pick up my mace and start creeping toward the latrine. Whatever is coming out of there is so close to my sacred little church area. I don't want it to ruin anything. I'm gonna think for my friends. I'm gonna say, "Hey, are you guys awake? Or is it just me?"
I'm awake.
No response from Arrow Shield.
He's like that, though.
Yeah.
I bet he's listening to us.
He's not stirring.
I think he likes pretending he's really dead.
What do you think it is that's has entered?
Some kind of... It's a spirit. I think I can tell it's not some person, but it's coming up out of the latrine. I'm going to peek around. I'm going to peek around the edge.
As you sort of are creeping out of the temple where you had made your stand, Headless, you don't really have eyes, but that doesn't matter for any of us. We all don't have eyes.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's more of a supernatural extrasensory perception. So you're definitely able to hear or get the sense that there is noise being made in the latrine, unlike the normal dripping of moisture or the sort of serrating rush of the river beneath it, or even occasionally like the sound of an animal that might be sort of like down there. This noise is new, like a squelching sound, as you feel the volume of the intruder continuing to increase as if it is somehow exponentially growing itself.
Well, that's not good. I want something. It's just coming up out of the river.
It's one of the few places that isn't shut off from the rest of this world.
Yeah, I think it's the only thing in this whole place that moves besides the circular obelisk thing, the teleporter. Maybe it's looking for something else that's moving. Maybe it doesn't know if everything in here is just still and dead.
Yeah, we need to stop it, whatever it wants to do.
Did you ever learn how to work the teleporter, or did the ferryman never show you?
I did not get that deep in my mysteries. I don't know.
I was thinking maybe we could send it somewhere.
There may be something. And Tattered Cloak sort of spills off of a bunk that falls apart with the movement and starts clambering towards the center of the tomb.
The elemental creature has gathered itself. It's pretty massive as it sort of rises up, probably standing 6 feet tall. And it almost resembles sea slug or something like that, as it's sort of like undulating and now starting to move forward. Not even crawling, more like inchworming forward. It's definitely leaving a very viscous trail in its wake as it is making its way out of the latrine and into the twisting hallways.
Well, I'm wearing 2 different boots, so I make a weird clomp when I walk. It's sort of like clomp, squitch, clomp, squitch. And I'm gonna truck my way kind of out in front of it, see if it takes any interest in me once it sees me.
You're like clomp, squish, and it's like squish, 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 as it's sort of making its way forward. Squish, squish. It's inching forward. As it gets nearer to you, in fact, quite near, stop, wiggles for a second, and then it rears back and looks like it's just going to try and collapse its upper half on top of you.
Clomp, squitch, clomp, squitch, clomp, squitch, away from it. I'm going to see if it'll follow me if I start to go.
I mean, its momentum is so great. I mean, it can't arrest its own sort of inertia.
Down.
It just slams down. Goosh!
Ah.
Splatters water everywhere all over the walls.
Slime.
Ugh. Tattered Cloak. This thing's
slime
making
is
a mess.
streaking down the walls.
We gotta get this thing out of here. It's messing up. It's gonna mess up my little temple.
Is it following you? Is it?
Yeah, it is.
Does.
See, watch. I'm gonna come up around the corner.
Which corner?
I'm gonna start to head toward the central chamber.
Okay.
So I'm taking a left at the bend,
Mm-hmm.
away from the trash room.
That's right. And it is following you. It doesn't move as quickly as you do, but you definitely are hearing the squish, 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 inching along in your wake.
And Tattered Cloak comes up into the main sarcophagus chamber, recognizes the space, understands that this is familiar, but doesn't really understand anything of it. And surveying these niches in the wall, the Tattered Cloak stops and says, "Yeah, I have a notion. I think you should lure it to the center. I think that's right. I think things are supposed to leave through the center."
Yeah, there's something. You're right. I mean, I feel like that's the right thing to do. Kind of like the mural on the wall. Something like that.
Well, it's definitely following you, though, again, it doesn't move as quickly as maybe you do. You're able to guide it down the halls, sort of zigzagging hallways of just sort of rough stone, into finally sort of the arched entryway into the central chamber. And the arched entryway is a little bit narrower. The creature is sort of like stopping and pushing itself, squeezing itself through the narrow.
Yeah, and that's when Tattered Cloak takes the butt of their sword and starts smashing in one of the niche faces, and it starts to chip away. And beneath it, you start to see another mummified form. So not a skeleton, but almost mirroring the facade, the bas relief that was above it, and the decor is a form in a green cloak with the sort of fiery jewelry that as the sword chips into it. Is there light in this place?
In some places, there might be little breaks in the ceiling that let in tiny shafts of light, maybe in the central chamber. Very small, but not in some of the other places, no.
Right. Okay.
We're down here, no. But
Yeah. So Tattered Cloak is just chipping away at this thing and trying to get into one of these niches.
So Headless is in the central room and is comes around the opposite side of the circular obsidian tomb, I guess sarcophagus. I don't know what it is. Object. It's kind of hoping
Portal.
this thing will just try to make a beeline straight across and maybe come into contact with it.
That's funny that you say that because that's exactly what it's doing. But it doesn't seem to be at all focused on you anymore. It seems to be very focused on the floating 6-foot diameter onyx pearl that is just hanging in this chamber. As the creature's moving towards it, there's almost an invisible energy that's causing ripples throughout the creature's form as it's basically rearing up and looking like it's going to try and engulf this sphere.
No.
Yeah, that's when Tattered Cloak, dropping the sword, reaches in and pulls the head off of this thing with this diadem, this crown of like flames on this like the green fabric tears away, and Tattered Cloak just hurls this thing into the center of the pearl.
Yeah.
And
that's when the gems light up.
The sphere turns the same color as the diadem,
green,
and this like green verdant thing, and this fresh, loamy, forced smell washes through the space, and you hear like the laughter of children.
And as the elemental creature comes into contact with the sphere, it seems to be like hoovered into it, like it's just being disappeared into this green sphere. It's just gone. However, the laughing of children quickly turns to screams.
I didn't plan on that happening. Those voices.
And with that, the creature is gone.
Well, how did you know how to do that?
I don't know.
But one of the 7 skulls is gone.
I mean, we protected the pearl, right? The skulls don't matter as much.
Yeah, we must be done. The weariness is overtaking.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm never.
And remember very clearly where your character is right now, where you ended the scene.
Not gonna make it back.
No.
So I have, what thing in this place did you lovingly craft with your own hands? The altar that was in my little place of worship.
Cool.
I don't know if it'd be a church, it's too small. Maybe a little chapel.
I
don't know how I did it, but I don't remember. But
Well, what's it made out of? Maybe that's it.
Yes, it's made out of obsidian. Again, similar to the other pieces of magical potency in this tomb, and it's cut in swoops, as if maybe the obsidian was cut to have a pattern that almost is scale-like. You know, it's not straight glass. It's kind of scalloped. And I made it with my own hands. I know it's important, and I want to make sure nothing harms it. Not as much as the floating obsidian circle, but it's important to me. And I don't even know if I remember why, but I don't want anyone to hurt it.
So my question was, whom did you once love? And as I surveyed the wall, there's one of the figures I continued to focus on, and it was one of the custodians, one of the ferryman people who
farriers.
Relationship that started off as teacher and student and evolved into full friendship, and then beyond that into a more like evolved relationship. Yes. So that's who I once loved, one of the ferry custodians.
God's laugh. Something the skeletons are protecting is destroyed. What is it? That's cool. All the bars are destroyed here.
Bars gone.
Yep. The bars have just been eaten away, destroyed, or even that whole room is starting to sag.
Like that platform is just
platform is dissolved and it's like sagging down.
And the water's starting to fill the room.
Yes, because it was like blocked by the rubble.
Dammed. Yeah.
Yes, I love it.
Darn. Our beautiful latrine, which was high technology at its time.
High technology. Gone.
So you do time passes now.
That's right. Ha ha ha. No time at all.
Immediately begin.
Immediately.
So the commotion coming from the latrine also brought along with it something very unexpected. The river had a surge when that creature came through and carried with it an interesting monster. It's actually a little swarm of pseudo amphibious piranha came surging up the river.
Ooh.
And they have little claw-like little legs, and so they're able to flop and scamper and scurry around out of the water for a few hours.
Mm-hmm.
And just this wash of them, their glittering little eyes and scales bilged ashore, and they're scrabbling their little way up the steps from the latrine where it's all collapsed and sunken. And the little of their feet and their clattering jaws are starting to echo down the hallways as they follow the smell of the water. Here they come.
Arise, skeletal guardians, and
protect the tomb. Here they come, this little that's starting to echo and grow.
Arrow Shield consciousness bubbles to the fore as they sort of look around at their surroundings, flexing the different parts of their body, lifting their shield and lifting their axe, moving their torso at the waist from side to side, just oddly sort of like getting back into what it means to have a corporeal form. There is a deep sense of tiredness, grogginess, almost like that they don't want to be moving, they don't want to be conscious, but they are compelled. And that being the case, they step off from the dais, the stone dais here in the room with all the other stone statues, the statuary. They begin to ploddingly make their way towards the living chambers on their way to where these intruders are. The intruders feel like, like when your hand or foot falls asleep. That's what Arrow Shield's mind feels like right now, like their skull.
Itches and tingles.
Yeah, itches and tingles, and it's just like an annoying sensation of these tiny creatures here.
And as they scamper, that sensation almost moves, like this weird, uncomfortable dead zone around your perception.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Tattered Cloak works his way out towards them and starts to bang his sword on the wall, just seeing if he can scare these things away.
Ooh, every time you bang the wall, you hear a little breath, a little pause in their behavior. So you hear the and the bang, and they kind of, and then they come up the halls again. So as you're clattering against the wall, there's sort of this back and forth
This pause.
echo, and then they come forth again, bit by bit.
And so they came out of the latrine area. Where sort of are they heading now?
They're following the trail of water left by that elemental. So they're making their scampery way towards the central chamber, actually, as well.
Tattered Cloak went down this sort
Yeah,
of
I'm sure I
way.
didn't like you.
All right. And I sort of come around the corner, seeing Tattered Cloak or feeling Tattered Cloak moving. And I simply say, I shall flank them. I go a different route to try and get behind them, even though it might take me a little bit longer and I'll have to go through the treasure room, trash room.
Right. So you pass through the series of archways into this trash room, and there's all what do you see when you go into the trash room?
The trash room, the best way to think of it is like cosmic lost and found. So it's like a midden heap of all different types of items. Many of them have been here for a long time, so they are in disrepair or falling apart. I tend to think that this is where like a backpack full of rations might be. So there is like stuff rotting here as well. So it has like a weird sort of sweet stench sort of in general. But
And there's like an exotic like spiciness to it.
Yes.
Because there's all these weird, and there's things in the corner, like different, almost like glowing bits in the portions of the room, like things that who knows what the half-life on these magics are.
Yeah, there are definitely odd magic items here, but I think sticking out of sort of the heaps of different items of junk, I guess, or trash as the case may be, there is in fact a treasure chest that's been made out of a dragon's skull. And so it's that dragon's skull has been sort of worked to allow its jaw to hinge open and for treasure to be laid where its tongue may have been in the past.
Gotcha. So there's a lot in here now. Your skeletal feet sort of slither and crunch and
That's true.
smash through the debris in here. Yeah, weird glowing powder erupts into the air at one point when you step on a vial that you didn't mean to.
Yep.
And as you're dragging your big heavy shield and axe, you're leaving a trail behind you, like carving through this pile of junk. You do see a few things in here that might be interesting to look at, but also as you come around the corner, you catch sight of this flopping and hopping mass of little legged piranha, and they scamper, but they also flop like fish when they're out of water to sort of lunge and bounce through the air down the hall. So you're seeing this jumping and scrambling mass of chompy, very sharp teeth as they boil away from you. And then every so often they'll kind of shudder to a stop when that echoing clang happens with Tattered Cloak's sword. You think they're funneled into this hallway right now. So this is a narrow hallway, so if you were to come up behind them, you'd probably be hemming them in at that point.
Yeah, so Tattered Cloak comes around the corner and confronts this mass around this hall. Starts in the face of them, like hitting his sword on both sides of the small, narrow hallway's walls.
So you're kicking up sparks, too, as you're, like, clanging against the walls here and taking a step. And every time you do it, you see the pack condensing. And that sound obviously irritates them. And they sort of shiver together and then flop together a little bit more as you're making your way down. And now you see what was once sort of a spread out flush of them is sort of packing into this, like, fish in a barrel style situation.
And from behind them, I'm not trying to make much noise, but for those that are sort of spilling back behind me, I'm taking my large shield and falling down on them to squish them.
Nice.
Like, yeah,
So
between my shield and the ground.
As the stragglers are sort of starting to retreat now, you see the school of fish start to shift in another direction, and they're starting to flop towards you. And as you bend down them, you get this kind of splat, but also a crunch as you shatter their little skeletons in their crunchy teeth.
And so that's basically what I'm doing is I'm sort of like smashing my shield to the ground, getting back up, waiting for more of them to sort of come forward and smashing my shield back down to the ground.
Yeah, and I just continue sort of sensing my compatriot at the end of the hall. I continue just driving them back to him, to Arrow Shield,
Excellent.
to them.
So there's a lot of squishing and sparks flying. A couple of them jump out and manage to like latch onto your arms and sort of dangle like weird jewelry, but you manage to crush the vast majority of them, and then the tiny stragglers who are still around flop back from whence they came. And you just have a big pile of gore in the hallway now.
Yeah.
It smells like fresh water in here,
Freshwater gore.
and sort of tangy and metallic as well. Guts everywhere. I think you guys have defeated this small, agile foe.
Do we answer a question?
We do.
What memento of your old life is still rattling around with you? I think that this episode has reminded me of a anklet. I think that my character is wearing. That this anklet, I guess it's made out of a metal, probably like an iron, but it is shaped like two sort of dolphins. I'm doing it. I'm doing it.
All right.
Two dolphins from nose to tail.
So mine is, what by name did you earn in life that describes your greatest accomplishment? Tattered Cloak's by name was Elder.
Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah, that's good.
But it's sort of a joke name, too, because it's the oldest apprentice.
He made it as far as he could have
Yeah.
as an apprentice.
So he's been in college for 12 years, is what you're saying.
Professional student.
Professional student. Got it. All right.
Glory fades
Yeah.
first, and then we'll do time passes.
Oh, glory fades.
Right? Yeah, you good.
A memory the skeleton had previously regained is false. And the truth asserts itself. Which memory and what truth?
Now, how about I'll do a false memory.
Okay.
So, who I once loved, this custodian. So, like, again, I remember I'm an elder, and I had this infatuation for my master. But I remember that had turned at a point. That there was a reason I was kept from moving forward,
Achieving the
from
status.
achieving the status of a fairy person, of a custodian.
Mm-hmm.
Bum, bum.
And so that strong emotion, was it love?
Or
Plot
was
twist.
it?
It's going to
A
be
month.
a month. So we're going to do a month. So we're going to turn off the lights and sit in silence for 20 seconds.
Arise and protect the tomb, skeletal guardians.
Out of the quiet, out of the emptiness, you come to life and you feel something scratching at the edge of the inside of the sarcophagus.
Ooh.
And long spindly legs start to push out. So yeah, you awaken with seeing your shadow or feeling this light and wind against your back and hearing the cries of strange birds and the rustling of leathery massive leaves or some sort of foliage that sounds strange, and this chittering language as forms start to emerge and meander around the tomb. And then the light shuts off and is replaced by like a gentle glow.
I'm awake. I don't know how long it's been even, but
A short amount of time. I am awake.
well, hi.
These bodies are getting all over my feet.
Oh.
I walk through the dead, decayed, desiccated,
Fetid, a month of
fetid
like
month,
fish rot.
Yeah, month of fish rot.
What is what is that? I smell it in my rock pores. But I'm gonna take my mace and sort of wave it around me. I've sensed leathery bat wings and things.
Yeah, you note that as you start to move and as you sense that there's like a squishing noise further in the corridors, the figures that are behind you stop moving and turn towards you, and the light is training on you.
Ooh, does it hurt?
No, it's just light.
I thankfully don't have eyes. I'm going to raise my hand in greeting and see what happens.
You turn to face these things without a face.
My rock swivels.
Yeah, and in front of you on these sort of branching legs, you see stalks that have eyes, and you see stalks that hold these little lights close to the center, but they're these their light down some of the other passageways. They're observing where the sarcophagus was broken. Some are testing at the edges of the other niches. Some are watching you. They're cautious, but more curious, it seems, and they aren't. You don't see them going for the sarcophagus right now. They're sort of starting to spread out and look around.
And when you say sarcophagus, you mean these here in the back, or no?
That's the sarcophagus. These are like the niche,
the
like
niches. Got it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna wave my mace at them so they definitely stay away from the the sarcophagus.
But that's what they emerged from as well.
Mhm. Yeah, they came through it.
Yeah, you're right. There's too much to protect in here. I'm gonna take my rock off. I'm gonna throw it at one of them.
So they become agitated and they try to grasp it out of the air, but it just parts their hands. You get the sense that they're extremely light, and it hits one of them and sends it tumbling and scattering back away, and you just see its little light like kind of scatter to the floor, and you just kind of hear this sort of dusty, quiet, like branches snapping and some like fluttering, scratching, and then stillness. And now the things array themselves more around you and
that's when
start to shine their light.
Arrow Shield comes through the arched, narrow doorway into the central chamber and takes stock of the three spindly creatures for him. Yeah, I mean, his axe starts to go to work as he advances on them, shield up, axe raised.
Yeah, your axe comes down. You sort of take them by surprise as they're focused on this figure in the center, and your axe comes down on the first one, and it slices clean through, again, like you're cutting through brambles, and legs just fly out in a flurry, and the thing sort of spins out away from your blow. As you didn't hit the core, you just kind of sheared off a good section of its legs, and it starts to kind of crawl in a pained way, and the others start to climb up onto the ceiling and hang there, out of trying to get out of your reach, and pulling the one you've damaged up into their number, and shine their light on the two of you, their lights, to try to keep a watch on you, keep tabs.
I swat at them from my higher vantage point with my mace.
They actually attempt to grab at you and your mace as it comes by, pulling back to avoid being injured. And they sort of climb. They now are comfortably settling on the ceiling and looking down on you. They're almost as comfortable on there as they were on the floor.
Erosio, my head was an effective weapon against them.
Where's your head?
It rolled down
Headless.
the passage.
Collect your weapon. I will stay here to make sure they don't leave.
I'll slide down off the sarcophagus, and I'll clomp squish my way down and grab my precious head.
Clomp.
And then I'll clomp squish my way back up into the central thing and lob it at their nest on the ceiling.
Yeah, they now are very aware of you both, and they scatter, and the rock arcs up and down to the ground again with a crash and shatter some of the tile in this room. And they look towards one of the exits, one of the arches, and start to skitter lower down on this dome ceiling and out towards this arch to go down a different passage away from the two of you through the area that, because you would come down here, and yes, through the sort of northwest exit.
Maybe we can drive them from the tomb.
They don't seem to be interested in the tomb.
Do you think they want something?
To live.
Well, I think if we can get them to leave, then we'll have done our duty. Maybe there's something in the trash room that can help us.
Perhaps. We must protect the tomb.
Well, I'm gonna squish clomp my way as hastily as possible to the trash room.
Sure.
I'm gonna look for something particularly nasty or corrosive that I could maybe throw at them. Maybe some of the congealing magical items.
Yeah, there's definitely a chest that sloshes a lot. and sort of tinkles with broken glass, but it's a well sealed and oiled chest that can hold this liquid, though the containers inside seem to have been broken. But you can sense like a noxious chemically odor from it as you disturb this concoction.
Ooh, this will work.
And you sense that these things have sort of, as you worked your way there, they had kind of continued skittering their way with slow, methodical movements. They're being very careful and almost like purposelessly looking around in this room. You just sense them being in there, moving about.
I'm following them.
Yeah, so
as best as I can.
As you reach them, you see some, like, as you get sort of into around the corner, you start to see what they're doing. They're just sort of shining their lights on the statuary, and as they have one light train behind them, one is sort of standing guard. They sort of rustle their legs together, make a little soft sound, and the others start and flitter and fit, climbing themselves up onto the ceiling of the chamber out of your reach.
I place my weapons down, my sword and my shield and my bearded axe, and I begin attempting to pick up statues to place them in the entry, or rather exit ways of this place, to block these creatures in here.
So I'm laboriously hauling this thing back down the tunnels. You can hear this like distant rattling coming closer. I'm gonna follow where I sense them to be, so I'm sure I'll have to come down around this way through the. Oh no, I could come up through the central room.
You could.
I'll do that, retrieving my head on the way.
Okay. So as you're placing statues to block this exit, you've already placed statues on the other exit, and you haven't really blocked this area, but you know your compatriots coming down that way. As you're placing statues there, you sense them massing behind you at that other exit, and you turn in time to hear a crash and see pieces of the statue fall, and a few of them tumble towards you and gather themselves. They had sort of compacted and pushed against one another to create enough mass to actually move one of the statues you placed in the way. And those that are closer to you are scrambling to gain purchase and get up again. The others start to scurry down this passage, and a few have stayed and are trying to help those who have fallen.
I quickly pick my weapons back up and attempt to slay any within reach.
Yeah, you slice through one or two, and again, almost like brambles, you hit one in the core, and it just, like blowing on a dandelion, just scatters, and little legs go everywhere, and they panicked, try to pull themselves out and away and off as you come near.
All right.
That's right, because you're coming around that way.
I am, and I have this crate full of disastrous, noxious vapors. So I'm gonna
Forgot about that.
I'm gonna make sure I unlatch the crate, and then I'm gonna lob it over the top into this room. We don't really breathe, so it's fine by me. I'm gonna pitch it in there and hope that it spills open and just spews gases.
It hits the ground and kind of rumbles and starts to like break and then reform and then break and reform, and doing that faster and faster and faster, and then just disintegrates, and this gas begins to billow out
Ooh.
and pour down all the corridors, and through, like, this green fog pours through your ribs, and it shifts in color as it continues forward, and you sense these creatures rushing into this antechamber here and trying to get into these doors as the cloud catches up with them. And both, I'll take a little agency here, you both have followed the cloud. It doesn't affect you, and it clears, and this sort of green vapor finally clears its way out. You can sense it going downhill and away and out through here, and you can hear as the fog hits the water and becomes more acidic, that the pool is sizzling and bubbling and melting more of the rock around it, and clearing out this room. You see just these shriveled, blackened little branches just scattered about the room, and that's all that remains of these creatures.
That's where I fall to rest.
Yeah, me too, I think.
So everyone can answer one question if they choose.
Who claimed your head and why?
That's a good one.
There was a tradition amongst the priests. I was a priest once. I passed the rank of acolyte, and I had become a priest, and I was actually one of those tasked with guarding and curating this temple and training the acolytes. When I passed, the tradition was to take the skulls of the priests and use them as decor. So my skull now lines one of the walls of this temple amongst my brethren, and coincidentally, I rose as a skeleton due to other forces. It is actually a place of honor to have no head, because it means my head's being honored elsewhere as a part of this same building.
Right.
Well, my memory comes from whom did you once love? And I'm saying that I, in the past, loved Abeo, the fairy priest.
All right.
Don't know who that is.
Don't know yet.
So the magic animating one of the skeletons, but not its compulsion to service, is beginning to fade. So who amongst us has their magic beginning to fade?
I think I might, because I don't know if I was ever meant to be a skeleton. I think it might have happened accidentally.
Oh.
I was supposed to be laid to rest and my head put on display, so my purpose is waning.
Must serve.
Headless realizes.
It's okay. I've collected some good tokens of service in my skeletal history. I don't know how much more is left in me, but if it pleases the gods of this tomb, then I'll continue to be a skeleton.
On time passes. This is a decade.
Nice.
We'll interrupt our story here and continue in our next communique. I was one of your players, John Holt. You can find me on Twitter at Lord Joho and on Instagram at board_ghost. You can find my media review podcast at newtoyoushow.com. You can find my book club podcast at woundandstab.com. Ken, where can people find you?
Hey, everybody, you can find me, Ken Breese, at Burlingsbeard, Berings Beard on Twitter. Find me at Burlingsbeard on Instagram and at my website of the same name. I am a for-hire game master in the New York City area. Please contact me if you want me to run your games. Would love to game with you.
All right. And Kelsey, where can people find you?
You guys can find me on thearcanelibrary.com, where I write D&D adventures and game aids for the 5th edition of Dungeons & Dragons. And I'm also on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook.
All right. And where are at
Same
the
name.
Arcane Library?
Yep.
Cool. All right. To learn more about the players and engine in our story, visit boardghost.com. You can attempt to pierce the veil and contact us at BoardGhostWorld on Twitter. Shout out through the ether if you have desires we can fulfill. You can leave reviews and comments on iTunes, your preferred listening portal. Please take a moment to subscribe so you don't miss out on the latest episodes. We're also on Facebook at facebook.com/boardghost. We'd like to thank Pat Couples for our theme song and interlude music. You can find more about Pat at patcouples.tumblr.com or on his band's website, hotelsandhighways.com. Also, we want to thank our patrons. We're on Patreon at patreon.com/boardghost, where our patrons are right now getting access to both halves of an episode if they're at the right level. They also get access to all the art in multiple wallpaper formats. So you can get that, and if you're at the highest tier, you can get access to some exclusive how to play videos that are only available on Patreon. So again, thank you so much to our patrons. If you aren't in a place to patronize us, even if you are patronize us, go out and follow us on all those things I talked about, but also share the show. Let people know about it. One, because we'd like to know that we're being listened to so that we can getting feedback from more people. But two, we also want to make sure these games are spread around and that people learn about them and are comfortable playing them for themselves. If you're not alone in the void, share our stories. The more they are consumed, the truer they become.
Dying don't agree with me.